This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Oh my God!
Thank you for downloading the latest edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Adam is in Brazil, having the time of his life on vacation. I know that he's excited that he gets a chance to have some time off, spend some time with the wife and her family in Brazil. I'm wondering if they have an opportunity to watch wrestling in Brazil. I know it's a worldwide thing, so I can't wait to talk to Adam in a couple weeks and get his sense of what it's like being a wrestling fan down there in Brazil. Now, I feel bad for him. He missed out on a great week of wrestling. To kick off, I'll give the half a point because typically on DocNJock, we rate Raw and SmackDown. We discuss, Adam and I, which show is better, which show brought the heat, which show made us mark out the most. And by and large, for the last year, as many of you know that listen to this podcast, SmackDown has just been running away with the competition. But this week, as a result of the quality shows that both Raw and SmackDown put, I'll just kick it off and say that both shows were worthy of half a point, and I was just impressed this week. Why was I impressed? Well, first and foremost, earlier this week, it was announced that Roman Reigns was going to be a participant on Monday Night Raw, and everybody kind of started speculating, what does this mean? What does this mean that Roman Reigns is coming back? And so when the news was announced, I was excited to watch Monday Night Raw. And they kick off the show with Roman Reigns, and they really did it right. It was handled so properly with such grace and elegance. The fans were really gracious with Roman Reigns. He took his time. His music hits to kick off Raw. And this week's Raw comes from Atlanta. So typically, wrestling fans realize that there are certain markets that have a lot better fans. And obviously, Lafayette, Louisiana, they have awful fans. And even WWE went out and had Pat McAfee, produce content making fun of last week's crowd because they were so dead. But this crowd's different. Atlanta crowds tend to be a little bit different. And so they kick off Monday Night Raw with Roman Reigns coming down to the ring. He's taking it all in, giving everybody high fives. Literally, it was cool to see David Arquette, a big wrestling fan. He's there in the front row. Roman Reigns goes over and sees his family. He is embracing the moment. And there are certain moments in wrestling that give you chills. And a moment like that, a guy that had been away since October, you could tell he was relishing the fact that, hey, I just get to go out there to the ring and have an opportunity to talk to people. So, look, good for him. He took his sweet-ass time to get to the ring, and he finally gets in and addresses the WWE Universe, and he delivers the great message that, after treatment, he is cancer-free. He is in remission. His leukemia is currently in remission. And that's great news because what does that signal? Roman Reigns is back. He's an active member of the roster. And what a great time for him to come back and be an active wrestler in the WWE because Monday Night Raw was taking a hit. And you all know, listening to this, people are talking about other promotions. People are talking about watching New Japan. They're talking about watching other type of content other than WWE. Why was that? Well, because the writing hasn't been creative. The show hasn't been produced properly. The show hasn't been one that has been worthy of really the fans to watch it. And also, some news was made in regards to Bruce Pritchard, and I'll talk about that too, what he can bring to the table. Will he be positive? What some of the early reviews have been in regards to Bruce Pritchard. But Roman Reigns being part of Monday Night Raw is just epic. It's great because of the fact that, this time around, hopefully it's produced properly. Hopefully this time around, Roman Reigns can be treated properly, and we don't need this kind of wish-wash of half the fans booing him, half the fans cheering him. Roman Reigns should be a face, and going forward, he should be the most popular face on Monday Night Raw outside of the man, Becky Lynch. If she makes an appearance, I do think she will get the huge pop and the huge celebration because she probably is the most over WWE superstar right now. But for Roman Reigns, I think it's a great opportunity to find out what he's really got this go round. And, he addresses the universe. He addresses the fact that, hey, thank you. He hears the fans. He takes it all in. And then he finally ends it and he goes to the back. And as you would expect, a member of the Shield comes out, and that's Seth Rollins. And that's all great. They embrace, but there's somebody missing. There's no Dean Ambrose. I wonder what people think about that. And I think it did kind of lead to people speculating, oh, wait a minute. Dean Ambrose is not there. What's this situation mean? What's going to go on? And it plays out later on in Monday Night Raw. But for me, I think the great thing that can happen is I really do think that the next man up for Roman Reigns should be Dean Ambrose. I think that it should be a situation in which you can bring it full circle. Dean Ambrose has been acting out as of late, kind of doing his own thing. And I think a matchup with the big dog, a matchup with Roman Reigns would be awesome. I think they could both play off each other and have a good time with it. And I think they both would, really elevate each other and have an opportunity to put on good quality matches. So Monday Night Raw kicks off with Roman Reigns, and I think it was great. It set the tone for the rest of the night. Now, everybody throughout Monday Night Raw was, really anticipating what's going to happen throughout. When's Ric Flair's birthday party going to kick off? When's Ric Flair? They touted it throughout the whole show. His 70th birthday party. Everybody's excited, and they're like, what's going to happen? Who's all going to come out? And typically, obviously, an Atlanta house is in the South. And so with that said, everybody was expecting a massive celebration, and one of the biggest surprises was they don't do it. And I wonder what you guys think. Were you impressed with how WWE confused everybody? Were you impressed with the swerve, or were you let down? Because it was a mixed reaction. There were people who were really upset that, they touted this celebration for a couple weeks, and they only use it to kick off a feud between Triple H and Dave Bautista, who returns. And they go to the back. A bunch of wrestlers come out, Sting, Triple H, Stephanie. There's everybody showering Ric Flair with love and really talking about how great Rick is and obviously his importance to WWE. But they pan to the back, and who's there? It's Dave Bautista, and he grabs a cameraman, and Batista's looking svelte. He's looking ripped, and he's taking this run seriously. And it's right away, you're like, oh boy, this run with Dave Bautista, he's going to be a heel. And he goes to the back, and he's gonna invade Ric Flair's locker room, and you hear him kind of ruffling it up a little bit. All of a sudden, Dave Bautista is dragging Ric Flair, and then you start to realize, oh boy, the birthday party's not going to happen. This birthday party is not going to happen on Monday Night Raw. And Dave Bautista looks in the camera and tells Triple H, do I got your attention now? Do I? And Triple H then runs from the ring to the back, only to see a beaten up Ric Flair. Dave Bautista has fled. I'm curious as to what you guys think, how this played out. Do you want to see Dave Bautista versus Triple H at WrestleMania? For me, it's fine. It's an acceptable angle. It's one of those, angles that you can highlight on Monday Night Raw. But for me, that's not going to be my primary focus for WrestleMania. That might be a piss break match. Triple H, Dave Bautista might be slower paced, a little bit more methodical. But it's worthy of being on the card, but maybe early on, second, third match in. I'm just not too intrigued by it because it's kind of been played out. It's kind of been talked about, and Dave Bautista, Triple H just isn't a draw for me. Now, to talk about the change that was made, Bruce Pritchard was brought back, a man that has been with Vince McMahon, a man that has cultivated quite the audience with his podcast and his insight and his work with WWE on the network. And so when I heard the news, I was a little bit excited because I do think one of the reasons WWE struggled was there were too many cooks in the kitchen. There were too many people that were writing angles, too many produced segments, and there were situations in which, it got kind of stale. It got to the point where you really didn't have to tune in every single week. You could have just bypassed the product all entirely and started looking to new promotions, new matches, something new and fresh. What WWE did was kind of surprise a lot of people. They brought back Bruce Pritchard to kind of run things, and that show on Monday was a little bit different. I was impressed with how the show was laid out. I was impressed with the swerves. I was impressed with how things were laid out, and so I do think that this opportunity for Bruce Pritchard going forward could be one in which is going to be successful. And it's just going to be beholden upon stars to come in, handle their business, take advantage of the opportunities that they have. And I do think that the likes of the young cats from NXT, I think that you're developing the mid-card guys at a proper pace. But the problem is, I've been talking about the pros. One of the problems is that WWE in its current form is really formulaic, meaning that if you're a fan, a longtime fan of WWE, you've seen these markings before. You've seen WWE or the authority or those that are perceived to be in charge. You've seen them run things before, a la Stone Cold Steve Austin, in the manner in which he got over, and the primary angle that was dominating back in the Attitude Era was Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon. Well, now you have scenarios in which the authority, or now Vince McMahon, is coming in and making changes. Obviously, the first change that Vince McMahon made was taking Becky Lynch out of that matchup and inserting Charlotte. And then, going over to SmackDown, he does it again. It's everyone's excited. It's going to be Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan. And then Vince McMahon comes out. He walks out. His music comes out just as Kofi Kingston's about to sign that contract. And then he announces an epic swerve. Oh, no, it's not going to be Kofi Kingston. It's going to be a returning Kevin Owens. And I thought the pop was awesome. The shock value was great. And I'll talk about my reaction, my thoughts about Kofi Kingston and the New Day in a few minutes here. But we've seen this before. We've seen the manner in which you can raise up the underdog to help them get over. If the WWE gives you enough trust, if they believe that you're ready for the prime time, they will kind of help along by creating this underdog role. They did it with Daniel Bryan. They've done it with others as well. Stone Cold Steve Austin, with AJ Styles, and with Kofi Kingston. Now he's getting the rocket ship strapped to his back, and he's about to take off and maybe poised for a WrestleMania match. Can't wait to talk about that. Kofi Kingston and the New Day, what the plans should be for them. But I've seen this before. So while it is fresh, while it is interesting to check out, I'm just not that shocked by a lot of the way these angles are playing out. Now, they're different. Different people are getting opportunities. That's fine. But the overall kind of theme is, I really don't need to see a whole heck of a lot of Triple H these days. I don't need to see Stephanie McMahon, Shane McMahon, Vince McMahon all up in the show. Now, look, it's their show. I understand. It's their product. They want to be all up in it. And when the ratings dip, they always believe that, hey, you insert a McMahon, you insert an angle that involves the authority or the McMahons, and you're like, all right, fine. You're intrigued. Ratings are boosted. But I just think that you're taking away important TV time from people that definitely will benefit from it. And I just think that after 20 years, you just hope that the McMahons can kind of find their way to the background around WrestleMania time. But it's just not happening. It's just not happening. They want to be inserted into the show, and it sometimes is at the expense of some important people that do need the time. But going forward, I am intrigued with some of the angles that are going to start to take shape for Fastlane and WrestleMania. But I do have a couple complaints with Monday Night Raw. A group that has established itself as a predominant tag team, the Revival. I'm really intrigued with how they're being treated in WWE. Because if you've seen what happened, they had a rise in NXT. They were great. They had great feuds. They performed. They got over. And obviously, it results in them being called up from NXT to the main roster on WWE Monday Night Raw. And early on, they're okay. They're inserted into some quality feuds. But then over the last 6 months, it just seems like the Revival haven't been placed in the proper spots, losing a lot of matchups. And then you start to hear rumblings that they're maybe thinking about, you know what? Maybe we should get released. Maybe we should test the water somewhere else. Maybe we should take advantage of some opportunities that may come our way, meaning AEW. So you hear rumblings and rumors that they've asked for their release. So what ends up happening? Oh, I think WWE panicked, because I don't think this was the plan all along, was to feature the Revival. I think maybe back in the day, it was probably the plan for another tag team to be featured. But the Revival wins the tag team championship from Bobby Roode and Chad Gable. For me, I thought that was way too soon. I thought you could have played that out and made that happen at WrestleMania, give them a moment. But no, like WWE, they rush things sometimes, and as things change and evolve, they give the belt to the Revival. Okay, great. That indicates, okay, the WWE champs, the tag team champs are the Revival. They're the IT tag team. And so what happens in the weeks following their win, in the weeks following their championship moment? They lose to NXT guys. They're losing. Now, I know wins and losses to WWE really aren't important. If you're on the show, then it's really big. You're getting paid. You're getting highlighted. But what does it really mean to the WWE Tag Team Champions that they're going out there the first couple matches on television after winning the title and losing? It's just like, they go out there, they face the pair of Aleister Black and Ricochet, and they lose. And I just sit there and I go, man, you know what? These two guys, Aleister Black and Ricochet, they haven't tagged too much together. The loss to Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa were at least acceptable because they've been a team before. DIY, they got a lot of respect. They got a lot of cachet. But I just think that the Revival deserves a lot better. And I don't know. If you wanted to keep them, if you wanted to impress them, I just felt like this was a scenario in which you could have done something different. You know what? Do you know who continues to impress me? Lio Rush. I think that his WWE run has been real impressive. Finn Balor was on A Moment of Bliss, and he comes out, and some people think that he's annoying, and some people think that he might be undersized. But Lio Rush is entertaining. He can take the mic. He grabs your attention, and I think that this guy Lio Rush has some untapped potential, whether it be as a valet or as an in-ring competitor that can be a foil, that can be kind of that annoying heel. I really like the fact that some guys on the 205 Live roster have transitioned to Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. It really goes to show you that, the prototypical big man doesn't have to dominate the entire show. And so Lio Rush, I like the work that he did with Bobby Lashley, and I like what he does in the ring, and I hope that he's able to kind of flourish and not kind of fall to the wayside at times, because that's how it feels every now and then. Going over to SmackDown, I just felt like, okay, now we have this great Raw show. What's going to happen on SmackDown? And it kicks off with that epic contract signing. And again, Vince McMahon comes out, like I said earlier, and he decides, to the chagrin and frustration of many, that Kofi Kingston will in fact not be taking on Daniel Bryan at Fastlane. It's going to be Kevin Owens. And when that happened, I'm like, okay, maybe we can extend this out. It doesn't really cause much intrigue in that many people don't think that Kevin Owens is actually going to defeat Daniel Bryan. Well, there's a tiny chance that Kevin Owens could do it. I mean, it's not going to be a total squash match. I do think that Fastlane is going to be a lot more interesting, but I do think that Kofi Kingston has been given this opportunity. He's now been made to be the underdog. His run is really going to be fascinating, and it's a run in which you can say it's well-deserved. This guy's been, going up and down the roads for 11 years, and he's been a mainstay. He's reached that level of consistency where when he goes to the ring, there's going to be decent matchups. There's going to be quality entertainment. And his run with the New Day has been epic. I mean, quality entertainment, moment after moment that we all remember. The New Day has been a staple, and probably in the years ahead, they will continue. I do think they're going to make noise, whether they're together or whether they're apart. Kofi Kingston has distinguished himself among that group, and it's really quality for him, and it's impressive to see. Now, does he deserve it? Does he deserve this push at this time? I do. I think so, because he also has done it in a way on both fronts, through great promos, through great entertainment, but also when he was called upon to help out the WWE when there was an injury to Mustafa Ali. He came in to the Elimination Chamber and he rocked it. And I do think that's what's impressive to WWE is they realize, oh my goodness, when you're given an opportunity, what do you do with it? Do you let the opportunity go by the wayside, or do you grab the opportunity by the balls and take advantage of it? And I do think Kofi Kingston has done it. Now, is it time for Kofi Kingston to kind of distinguish himself away from the New Day? And the answer is yes. I think that for him to really fulfill this run, he probably needs to be away from the New Day. And I think the New Day can also transition to become a great heel tag team because they've had such an epic run. They haven't really tested the waters as heels. And what better way than maybe at WrestleMania for everybody to think that, okay, Kofi Kingston's the guy. He's the next man up. He's going to be close to defeating Daniel Bryan. It's going to be a 5-star matchup. And all along the way, the New Day's trying to help out. But something happens, and they cost Kofi Kingston at WrestleMania the matchup. and Daniel Bryan's doing his heel thing, walking away from the ring, and then the New Day is destroyed right there at WrestleMania, and Kofi Kingston should then be the victim of a beatdown right there in the ring. He could cause massive damage, and then you can continue that elevation for Kofi Kingston by his initial feud being with former members of the New Day. And I do think that would be great. I think Kofi Kingston is poised to have a massive 2019. Are they handling it properly? Yeah, he's white hot. They are taking advantage of it, and they're giving him the special treatment by making him the underdog, by having him get screwed by Vince McMahon. But I do think they got to pause it and kind of slow it down just a little bit and allow him to kind of now establish some wins, the Kofi Kingston that is, establish some wins and some feuds, whether it be with a Randy Orton and AJ Styles, a Mustafa Ali. Let him start to have 2019 be the year of Kofi with some quality wins. And I just think it's going to be great for Kofi if they can take advantage of it. And I do think it's something that they will seriously take a look at. A major surprise also happened on this week's SmackDown. It was the return of the Hardy Boys. And it was surprising to me because by all accounts, by reading the Matt Hardy Twitter page, you kind of had the feeling that, his body had just taken too much. He's kind of, been up and down the road for so many years that he just couldn't do it anymore. But no, the Hardy Boys had returned, and it was a great matchup. It was good to see, but you can kind of see, it's not the same version of the Hardy Boys. They're a little bit slower, but they're still entertaining. So what should the Hardy Boys do? Is this their last run? What purpose would the Hardy Boys have coming back at this point in time? It kind of brings things full circle, and WWE likes to kind of complete the narrative. And Matt Hardy, obviously with the Woken character, it was okay. But all in all, I think we all can assess it as something that left us wanting a little bit more. There was a tag team run. There was a great relationship with Bray Wyatt, but they just didn't really kind of pay it off completely. Yes, there was an Ultimate Deletion kind of style match. It was good, but it was a WWE version. It wasn't, and it did not live up to the same standard as the Impact version. It just didn't. And it was great. People did do the delete sign. People were excited to see it. Matt Hardy obviously had, with the Woken character, a great moment at WrestleMania by winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. It was great. All in all, it was a fine angle for WWE to pursue, but it just did not get over. The Woken character did not get as over as many would have liked. And I was just a little bit disappointed by that. But now you have this version of the Hardy Boys, and you can kind of see that, a little bit of rust there. Matt hasn't wrestled since teaming with Bray Wyatt, last August. He was using the Woken gimmick back then, and now he's back with Jeff Hardy. And I think there's an opportunity to have great matches with a lot of the tag teams on SmackDown. Is it needed? Probably not. I think that, Matt Hardy can transition to a backstage role, help out a little bit, help the cause, and things like that. But if he wants to go out on top, if he wants to go out with one more WrestleMania moment to fulfill his contract, then I don't really have a problem with that too bad. Yeah, so hopefully SmackDown can continue their wave of success. They can have quality angles. I'm just a little bit concerned with how AJ Styles is being utilized. It just doesn't seem like he's as big a focal point as I would like. I just think that, obviously, after a year run, I know that now he's going to transition into maybe a feud with Randy Orton, but I just think that, he could continue to have quality matches at the top of the card and things like that. But Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan, give them credit. They're doing some great things. They're having great matches, and they're providing quality entertainment. And Daniel Bryan, look, sometimes we do have to appreciate those that are successful and doing great things. Daniel Bryan as a heel, I didn't think I would like, but he's doing great things. I mean, he's really interjecting part of his own personality into this gimmick, and the inclusion of Eric Rowan is really interesting. I'm interested to see how this is going to progress, but it just kind of feels like Daniel Bryan, outside of the heel promos, needs to do that one big thing against a face. He needs to really, maybe attack the likes of a Kofi Kingston. He needs to really cost some baby faces some opportunities and things like that. And there's been a lot of talk about, in the coming year or so, how this is going to play out, and should WWE kind of just go away from the brand split. But it would cause a big problem in that, you're going to have the top guys on both shows if you do bring both brands together. But here's the thing. I think one of the best things they can do is kind of limit the number of writers. I mean, I'm reading a report right now on the screen that Dana Warrior, the wife of the Ultimate Warrior, has been brought on as part of the writing team. And I'm like, look, I mean, that's great. She comes from, obviously, having been exposed to the Ultimate Warrior and stuff like that. I just think that WWE needs to hire less writers, less writing, just more storytelling, less. I don't understand why WWE keeps finding all these writers and hiring them. I just think that they got to highlight the talent they got to find ways to do better promos, and I just think more writers is not the answer. But we'll see how Dana Warrior does in that role. But I just think they need a lot less writers going forward. Man, more writers. I just don't understand that whole concept. I just think that WWE, maybe if they actually used NXT as a third brand legitimately and not just a developmental brand, maybe you have a shot where you can kind of, unclog the jam so that you can have Daniel Bryan on Raw and SmackDown. And then you just use NXT as another brand that maybe just airs a 2-hour show on the weekend or something like that, where you can have the legs of the B team. You can have Bobby Roode and Chad Gable there. You can have Jinder Mahal. Because the biggest thing right now that's going on, and I think that's going to benefit AEW, is there's such a logjam in WWE. There's a lot of talented guys that could have the light shined on them. They need a place to go. And if it's not Raw and SmackDown within those 5 hours, I mean, look, WCW, they had WCW Saturday Night, which was a 2-hour show. At one point in the heyday, there was a show on Monday, a show on Thursday, Thunder, and there was WCW Saturday Night for a short period of time. So I think WWE could utilize another show that airs maybe on the weekend that they can maybe even pre-tape. It's no big deal. Not everything has to be live. Pre-taped action can be utilized and have more of these guys outside of the half-hour window that you get in these dark matches. That's just my 2 cents. I hope everybody enjoyed me by myself. This Wednesday, upcoming, the next episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast, I will effort a guest, and we'll do a Fastlane preview and discuss what we saw on Raw and SmackDown and any other issues that arise, whether it be rumors or anything like that. So I thank everybody for finding me. You can follow the network at Detroit Podcast. You can follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. I want to thank those that have been supportive to the network. I want to thank Dennis Farrell and the Wrestling Perspective Podcast. You can follow Dennis on Twitter at Dennis77Farrell. Visit his website, thewrestlingperspectivepodcast.com. His show is great. He's really working hard with Petey Williams. They're producing great content. They talk a lot about Impact Wrestling. If you want to know a lot of inside information, if you're a smart mark, you have to be listening to Dennis and Petey Williams. They talk a lot about some behind-the-scenes stuff. They talk about the production value of wrestling. They talk about what it's like to be part of TV tapings, a lot of great ideas on angles. So definitely check out Petey and Dennis Farrell. And last but not least, the Breaking Down the Ring podcast, the most inappropriate wrestling podcast. They air live on the Podcast Detroit platform every single Wednesday, 9:15. They do great work via Periscope, so you can interact, ask questions. Definitely a great podcast. Again, the Breaking Down the Ring podcast, all their social media is at BDRcast. And look, guys, if you're a fan of these wrestling shows and you see that they're creating great content, go to their Patreon pages, buy their t-shirts, engage in the process, because that's how we keep this thing going, is by your support, whether it be, contributing $1 a month via Patreon, or whether it be visiting their website or asking a question or just retweeting when the guys at the Breaking Down the Ring podcast are on Periscope. Help out the cause by engaging with those that are doing great content. And so please support those like Dennis Farrell, Petey Williams, and Mikey from Breaking Down the Ring podcast. See everybody next week. I really enjoyed it.